We're now at the halfway point in the year, so from now until Thanksgiving-ish, it's spooky season. Kicking it off is a new, subtle, dramatic horror that's coming to cinemas and then Shudder, called Abraham's Boys. It's a slow and patient Dracula story from Joe Hill, but does it work as a vampire tale? Max and Rudy Van Helsing have spent their lives under the strict and overprotective rule of their father, Abraham. Unaware of his dark past, they struggle to understand his paranoia and increasingly erratic behavior. But when they begin to uncover the violent truths behind their father's history with Dracula, their world unravels, forcing them to confront the terrifying legacy they were never meant to inherit. For a story that revolves around the themes of Dracula and vampires, the movie presents a fairly bright and sunny environment in which everything unfolds. Titus Welliver is Abraham Van Helsing, of the vampire killer frame. So they left Europe. He moves his wife and 2 sons to California, supposedly creating much-needed distance between his former life and this fresh new beginning. Now, the storytelling format, it's almost presented in a slice-of-life sort of way. We see events develop over a relatively short period of time, so the background we get on situations and even characters strictly comes from their conversations. Now, luckily, these sorts of exposition dumps, they're not awkward or forced. They're paired with the natural actions of characters and then makes the plot flow easily. And despite the setting being sunny and bright, the isolation and loneliness the Van Helsings have created by just living out in the foothills, far from others, it helps to amplify a quiet dread. And this also works to frame the family as strange and cagey. They're wary of outsiders, most likely as just a result of their time spent hunting bloodsuckers in Europe. But there's also this secretive nature to Ma and Pa Van Helsing. It reinforces the feeling that all might not be how it appears on the surface. Now, for Welliver, his accent warbles a bit, and it's uneven in spots. He's supposed to be from Amsterdam or some other locale in Europe, but I'd rather he just speak normally because it became distracting in spots. Now, aside from that, though, I love the stoic and sketchy performance he brings. He's cryptic and reserved, creating a persona that is simultaneously untrustworthy and protectively paranoid. And I enjoyed the tense aura that he brings. And although I'm not supportive of his abusive tones and tendencies towards his kids, Abraham becomes a massive influence on their psyche, which helps to set up the dread, uneasiness, and mystery for the rest of the story. And to complement the harsh and demanding personality of Abraham, Jocelyn Donahue plays Mina Van Helsing, the wife of Abraham and then the mother of the boys. Now, she is softer, more compassionate, but also just as mysterious. We learn almost immediately that she's been afflicted with some sort of sickness from the vampires. Now, she can walk around in the sunlight. She doesn't appear to have any sort of bloodlust, but she does act strangely through most of the story. And we needed her tenderness with her kids to offset and then contrast how their father behaves. And Donahue delivers that through loving and empathetic looks and then caring mannerisms, believably conveying the emotional shelter that her kids require. And then we've got Brady Hepner and Judah Mackey. They portray Van Helsing's sons. Now, the crux of the storytelling is felt through their perspectives. The story focuses heavily on how their worldview is shaped, and arguably warped, because of their father's expectancy. And some of their duties and training, they're not unlike anything you'd see in a Western, where manual labor is the standard and the chores are sometimes gruesome. Here, though, the story makes their tasks way darker, taking on a morbid and violent tone. And the performances from Hepner and Mackey, they're excellent because they convincingly deliver shock, horror, disgust, even sometimes pride out of what they've been tasked to do by their dad. And at a point, they then stumble on something they're not meant to see. And that's where the story takes on more of a mysterious edge. It's giving us pause to question all that we've been told by Abraham. There are some creepy and unsettling visuals sprinkled throughout the movie. Most of them come in the form of dreams, but there's such a realness to them that it's hard to tell if maybe people are just getting a glimpse of the future or if they're just becoming a little unhinged thanks to the stress and sadness that they're undergoing. In the entire movie, it's presented in almost a 1-to-1 square ratio format, creating just another sense of claustrophobia and tightness because we can clearly see the image doesn't take up the full width of the screen, making it appear that more might be happening just out of our view. And there are also a couple of scenes that are presented in black and white. And I'm not sure I was a complete fan of these. Not because it was black and white, but because it was so infrequent, it felt more gimmicky than anything. There is a lot that is unsaid within what we're shown. I appreciate the show don't tell, but it can also add some annoyance because the arc lets us interpret the truth based on what we took in. In one way, this is great because the story provides us the opportunity to critically think through everything that we were shown and told, and then arrive at the conclusion we think makes sense. But I also know that at times, ambiguity can be more of a cop-out by not providing a firm resolution. Now, what I took away from this without spoiling anything is that the story was more intent on showcasing the relationships and how these affect worldviews than it was on providing us with a vampire horror. We do get some images that are tense, even grotesque, but if you go into this expecting to have a bunch of the never dead biting on everybody's necks, you're going to be disappointed. The emotional drama within the family is showcasing secrets, lies, heavy expectations, and disenchantment. They're what create the most tension, even some horror. And to watch childhood stripped away out of a firm belief, that is a powerful way to illustrate the harshness of growing up. And then, when that's combined with the lore of Van Helsing and his reputation, it takes on an even more affecting tone with these particular characters. Now, I'd said at the very start that this is subtle and dramatic, which it is, but it's also executed at a very slow pace. There is a ramping up of intensity, but that on-ramp, it is long, making the 89 minutes feel closer to 120. And that doesn't make this a poor film to watch, but it could make for restless watching if you're not aware going into it. So overall, Abraham's Boys is an intriguing look at childhood and adolescence, viewed through the lens of a protective and paranoid father who believes he's been killing vampires. The performances are quiet, with a burning intensity that brings tension and dread to the characters' world. Although I could have done without Welliver's accent wonkiness, and the lack of solid resolution can be disappointing, this delivers the necessary uncertainty and apprehension of growing up that's enhanced through the backdrop of blood-sucking threats. The practical effects are excellent, but are sparingly used, and even though this does have some creepiness to the storytelling, the film as a whole is less vampire horror and more coming-of-age anxiety. There's no sex or nudity, barely any profanity, and some violence. I give Abraham's Boys 3.5 out of 5 couches. And again, this isn't a typical vampire story, but the storytelling is engaging and impactful. Alright, so who is your favorite vampire? Is it Edward? Maybe Laszlo or Naja, or even Lestat? Now for me, I'm going to go with Paul Rubens' Amelin simply for that death scene. Let me know yours though in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.